My dad handed me an $8,400 Christmas bill and said I was paying but not invited. Reddit stories. He framed it as, "For the kids," while my daughter stood there empty-handed and confused. That was the moment I realized I wasn't family to them. I was funding it. Hi, I'm Evan, 38, and my Christmas exploded the moment my dad handed me a bill for $8,400 and said the sentence that snapped something in me clean in half. "You're paying. Not attending. Your sister's kids need this." I didn't write a check to him. I wrote one to a lawyer. Let me take you to the moment it all blew up. Christmas at my dad's house always followed procedure. Coats piled neatly on the guest bed. Shoes lined up like a TSA checkpoint. My sister Beth's kids running laps through the hallway like tiny caffeinated tornadoes while the adults pretended the noise was holiday spirit, and not a migraine in the making. I should have noticed the red flags immediately, the matching Vekuri 2026 sweatshirts folded on the couch. 3 of them. Kids' sizes. None for my daughter. Nora stood by the tree with her hands behind her back, rocking on her heels the way she does when she's trying to make herself small. 9 years old, sweet as honey, soft-spoken, painfully polite. The kind of kid who apologizes to the grocery cart for bumping it. She wore the green dress she picked herself. She curled her hair. She practiced saying, "Merry Christmas, Grandpa," in the car because she wanted to sound like family. Dinner ended the way it always did. Beth accidentally forgot to bring the salad she signed up for. Dad poured himself a third bourbon before dessert, and everyone gathered in the living room for his annual grand presentation of gifts. Beth's kids lined up automatically. They knew the choreography. Dad lifted 3 white envelopes, not Christmas envelopes. Airline envelopes. Beth's oldest ripped his open, screamed, jumped. Her middle child shrieked in harmony. The youngest flapped his ticket like a bird. 3 first-class tickets to some resort vacation. My dad beamed like he personally invented joy. Then he looked at my daughter. He did not hand her an envelope. Just gave her a polite little nod. A background character nod. Nora's smile froze. Then wilted. She looked down and twisted the ribbon on her dress, tiny fingers working too hard. I waited for my dad to call her name. He didn't. Instead, he turned to me, set a thick envelope on the coffee table, and said, "I figured we should be transparent about this." Inside. A bill. Typed. Itemized. $8,400. Your share of vacation costs. Flights. Resort. Car rental. Meals. Souvenirs. Every line painstakingly listed. The audacity was almost artistic. I stared at him. "What is this?" "A family vacation," he said, completely serious. "We're planning it. I wasn't invited." He smiled. "You're paying, not attending. Your sister's kids need this." Nora's hand slipped into mine then, small, shaking. "Did I do something wrong?" she whispered. And that was it. The moment something old and exhausted inside me finally stood up and said, "No more." I folded the bill carefully. Not angrily. Deliberately. "I'll think about it," I said. And I left. Quietly. No scenes. No yelling. Just a father taking his daughter home. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of anger. Anger I could have handled. Anger burns hot, then cools. This was something colder. A clarity that felt like standing outside your own life, watching the pieces finally slide into place. Around midnight, I found Nora on the couch, curled under a blanket with her stuffed fox. She wasn't crying. She was thinking, which was worse. When she heard me, she sat up fast, wiping at eyes that weren't even wet. "Sorry," she said. God. That word. That reflex. "You don't need to apologize," I told her gently. "I didn't know the vacation was only for cousins," she whispered. "I thought maybe Grandpa forgot my envelope." She said it with hope, like she was giving him the benefit of the doubt. Kids are too generous with their hearts. I sat beside her. No, honey. He didn't forget. Did I do something wrong? There it was again, the question that had been gnawing at her since the living room applause that didn't include her. No, I said firmly. You didn't do anything wrong. Grown-ups did. She nodded, but she didn't believe me yet. She pulled the blanket up to her chin. Can we just stay home next Christmas? She asked. Yeah, I said. We can. She fell asleep on the couch, Fox tucked under her neck. I carried her to bed, pulled her covers up, and stood there longer than necessary. Then I went to the kitchen table, pulled out the $8,400 bill, and read it again. Souvenirs for the kids. Kids, plural. Except mine. Flights for the family. Family, defined by everyone except the man who raised her. Someone had typed this with intention. Budgeted it. Printed it. Folded it. Handed it to me like I was a sponsor for a little league team I wasn't allowed to watch. At 3:17 a.m., I opened my laptop. Googled. Family Financial Boundaries Lawyer Columbus. Names popped up. One stood out, clean reviews, clear language, no nonsense. Priya Patel, Family and Asset Protection. I filled out the contact form. Wrote one sentence in the notes. My father handed me an itemized bill for a vacation I'm not invited to. I need to legally separate finances from family. I didn't expect a reply until after the holiday. I got one at 7:42 a.m. Can meet today at 1 p.m. Bring documents. We'll talk options. I made Nora pancakes shaped like snowmen. She laughed at their crooked faces. And for an hour, the world felt normal again. But at 12:30, I dropped her at my neighbor's, a retired librarian who adored her, and drove downtown. Priya's office was small, neat, efficient. She listened. Never interrupted. Never asked why I'd put up with this for so many years. When I finished, she said, calm and surgical, Evan, you're not dealing with family dynamics anymore. You're dealing with dependency economics. She slid a form toward me. This is a retainer. Once you sign it, I take over every financial tie binding you to them. I looked at the amount. $8,400. I actually laughed. Priya didn't. Poetic, right? She said. I signed. Not for revenge. Not for punishment. For Nora. Because a man who can hand you a bill for a family vacation you're not allowed to attend is a man who will never treat your child as his own. And I'm done letting her feel like a visitor in rooms where she should feel safe. Was I wrong here? Write your opinion in the comments. Priya didn't waste time. The moment the ink dried, she pulled out a yellow legal pad and began listing every financial entanglement a grown child can inherit without ever agreeing to it. Joint accounts. Authorized users. Automatic payments. Shared phone plans. Emergency contacts tied to billing. Old cosign lines hiding in credit reports. Informal, family systems, where expectation becomes obligation. I felt sick watching the list grow. Here's the truth, she said, tapping her pen. People who rely on you financially will never voluntarily release you. You have to cut the ties cleanly. Her plan was horrifyingly efficient. Step 1, freeze the joint emergency account my dad insisted we open. Just in case. Step 2, remove his name from my credit cards. Remove Beth's too. Step 3, transfer my daughter's phone off the family plan. Step 4, block all new charges tied to my information. Step 5, create a legal record that all financial support has ended, permanently. If they tried to claim you agreed to pay for anything else, she explained, this protects you. No more assumed obligations. By the time I left her office, the ball was rolling. I drove home feeling like I'd escaped a cult. That night, after Nora fell asleep, I sat on the couch with my laptop and followed Priya's steps one by one. Removed Dad as an authorized user. Removed Beth. Closed the emergency account. Revoked the autopayment privileges they had quietly been using for small things. Every confirmation email felt like removing a brick from a collapsing building. The phone plan was the last piece. I moved Nora's number to a separate plan under only my name. When I saw my dad's and Beth's lines still attached to my old account, costing me $312 a month, I clicked cancel without hesitation. 2 minutes later, the service confirmed. Your responsibility for these lines is terminated. I shut my laptop. For the first time in years, my house felt quiet in the right way. The next morning at 8:06 a.m., my phone exploded. Dad. Beth. Dad again. Unknown number. Voicemail. 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 I didn't answer. I made Nora oatmeal and listened to her talk about a penguin-themed book she was reading. Only after she left for school did I open the messages. Dad's first voicemail was tight and calm, like he was trying out a rehearsed tone. Evan, your card declined when I tried finishing the travel payment. Must be a mistake. Call me back. His second message was less calm. Fix your card. They're telling us we'll lose the reservation. His third message was pure anger. What the hell are you doing? We have a system. You don't just cut everything off. Ah. There it was. A system. Their system. Beth's voicemail was tearful, dramatic, operatic. The kids are already excited. How could you do this to them? You know we can't cover the rest. Dad said you'd pay your share. Evan, you're punishing children. No mention of my child. Not once. That was always the tell. I deleted every voicemail without saving a single one. Priya texted me 10 minutes later. Saw the attempted charges. Let them decline. Don't respond. Everything is happening exactly as it should. Exactly as it should. It didn't feel good. But it felt right. Because I wasn't just cutting myself loose. I was cutting Nora loose from a family that saw her as optional. And that was a price I would pay every time. The airport meltdown hit like a hurricane. Not for me. I was sitting at my kitchen table eating a grapefruit. But for my family? Biblical. It started with a text from Beth at 5:42 a.m. What did you do? Then. We're at the airport. The cards are declining. Fix this. I took a slow sip of coffee. Priya had warned me. When you remove a safety net, the people who depended on it will hit the ground hard. Let them. A few minutes later, my phone rang. Dad. I answered because I wanted the record. His voice came through loud, frantic, breathless, like he'd sprinted through the terminal. Evan, the card won't go through. I know, I said. He blinked through the phone. I could hear it. You know? Yes. I removed you as an authorized user. You can't do that. I did. There was rustling, muffled arguing, Beth in the background snapping something about the resort deposit, and why didn't he warn us? Dad lowered his voice to that tone he uses when he thinks he's being reasonable, authoritative. Evan, we're at the gate. The kids are upset. Just handle this. There's nothing to handle, I said. I never agreed to fund your vacation. You knew the expectation. Expectations. The family's favorite word. Did you invite Nora? I asked. Silence. In the background I heard. Is he paying or not? What are we supposed to do? I told you he'd make this difficult. Dad finally said. This trip is for the kids. She's a kid. You know what I mean. And there it was. The sentence that snapped the last thread holding me to them. No, she was not one of their kids. Not in the family vacation. Not in the matching shirts. Not in the budget. Not in their definition of who mattered. So I said it clearly, quietly. I won't fund a family that excludes my daughter. Evan. I hung up. Not dramatically. Not angrily. Just done. Later that day, Diane, my aunt, my dad's older sister, called me. She didn't bother with hello. Oh my God, Evan, she said, laughing so hard she was wheezing. I just got off the phone with your father. The airport staff thought they were attempting fraud. The resort wouldn't release the room keys without the deposit. Your sister was sobbing in the lobby. I rubbed my face. They brought this on themselves. Oh, I know, Diane said. I just wish you could have seen it. Your dad telling the hotel manager, my son always pays. Like that's a legal doctrine. I couldn't help it, I laughed. Then she dropped her voice. You did the right thing. That man has bled you dry for years. I'm proud of you. I exhaled slowly. It felt like the first honest breath I'd taken in months. When we hung up, I checked on Nora. She was in the living room, building a little Lego house, pink door, yellow windows, a crooked chimney. Is that our house? I asked. She nodded. It's small but happy. Small but happy. God, this kid. She looked up at me with a shy smile. Can we make hot chocolate later? Yeah, I said. We can make hot chocolate. And for once, the quiet in the house didn't feel like something missing. It felt like peace. What would you have done? Comment your choice below. They were back from vacation an entire 48 hours before the knock came at my door. Not a polite knock. A summons. 3 sharp, angry hits that rattled the frame. I opened it just enough to step outside and keep Nora out of sight. My dad stood there, sunburned in weird patches, forehead red, nose peeling, neck crisp. The kind of uneven burn you get when you spend a week outdoors stressed, angry, and arguing with customer service. Beth hovered behind him, arms crossed, face pinched, hair in a messy bun that screamed both exhaustion and blame. They didn't say hello? Dad shoved his sunglasses onto his head. You humiliated us. Not hi. Not can we talk. Just, the indictment. I leaned against the door, calm. No, I said. I stopped paying for you. Beth stepped forward. The kids thought we were getting kicked out of the resort. You weren't, I said. You simply couldn't access what you couldn't pay for. Dad's jaw flexed. You made us look like idiots. I shrugged. I didn't make you say my son always pays to hotel staff. That landed. His face flushed deeper than the sunburn. Beth pointed a finger at me, shaking. You weaponized money against your own family. I almost laughed. You mean I stopped being the family ATM? Dad took a breath, composing himself, switching tactics. Let's be reasonable. We need to come up with a new system. You mean I pay you on a schedule? I said. Yes, he said without hesitation, as if the logic were flawless. I stared at him. You really believe that's reasonable? You make more than we do, he snapped. It's your responsibility. There it was. Spoken plainly for the first time. Not help. Not generosity. Responsibility. Because in his mind, my success wasn't mine, it was the family's revenue stream. Dad, I said slowly, you didn't invite my daughter. He rolled his eyes like it was irrelevant. That's not what this is about. It's completely what this is about. Beth cut in, voice shrill. Nora isn't. I stepped toward her. Finish that sentence. She froze. Her eyes flicked away. Because she knew exactly what she was about to say. Nora isn't really family. I didn't need to hear the end of it. I'll make this simple, I told them. You will never again ask me to fund anything. Not bills, not emergencies, not vacations. Dad scoffed. You think you get to dictate that? I already have, I said. Your access is gone. Permanently. Beth sputtered. Dad shook his head like I was disappointing him. Then he said something that should have hurt but landed like static. You're choosing her over us. Meaning Nora. Meaning my child. Meaning the kid they refused to acknowledge while reaching into my wallet. Yes, I said. I am. Dad blinked. For the first time, genuinely surprised. You'd throw away your whole family for a girl who isn't even blood. I felt something inside me grow cold and sharp. I didn't throw you away, I said. I stopped letting you hurt her. He opened his mouth, but I cut him off. And if you ever say something like that in front of her? I stepped closer. You won't see either of us again. Silence. Beth shifted uncomfortably. Dad looked like he wanted to argue but couldn't find footing. Finally, he muttered, "You'll regret this." "No," I said. "I'm finally living my life." I stepped back, closed the door quietly, and locked it. Behind me, in the hallway, Nora peeked out from her room holding her stuffed fox. "Was that Grandpa?" "Yes," I said softly. "Is he mad?" "He's confused," I said. She nodded slowly. "Are we still okay?" I crouched and hugged her. "We're better than okay." She squeezed me back, then whispered, "I'm glad you chose me." I hadn't cried once through all the drama. But that cracked me open. For about 2 weeks, things were quiet. Too quiet. No knocks. No airport meltdowns. No multi-paragraph guilt texts from Beth at 1 a.m. No voicemails from Dad trying out new victim tones like he was auditioning for a play. Just silence. Nora thrived in that silence. She slept better. She smiled more. She asked to decorate her room with fairy lights. Because it feels like a home now. Every day without caves felt like proof I'd made the right decision. But in my family, calm is never peace. Calm is the inhale before the tantrum. The explosion arrived on a Thursday afternoon. I was chopping vegetables for dinner when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. Normally, I ignore those. But something told me to answer. "Hello?" A measured, professional voice replied. "Mr. Clark? This is Marissa Johansson. I'm the Family Services Liaison for your daughter's school." My stomach tightened. Nora. Not my family, Nora. "Yes," I said. "Is something wrong?" She hesitated. That was the worst part. Hesitation meant this conversation had weight. "We received a call from your father earlier today." I closed my eyes. "Of course. May I ask what he said?" I asked, bracing myself. "He reported," she continued carefully, "that Nora is being raised in an emotionally unstable environment. He suggested she may be experiencing neglect due to what he described as your erratic behavior." For a second, I forgot how to breathe. Nora. They went after Nora. "Just to be clear," I said slowly, "my father, who has minimal contact with my daughter, called the school to claim she's unsafe with me." "Yes," she said gently. "We're obligated to notify you when a report is filed." I gripped the counter so hard my knuckles went white. "Did he provide any evidence?" I asked. "No," she said. "And to be completely honest, based on Nora's behavior, academic performance, and teachers' observations, nothing he said aligns with what we see at school." Relief washed over me, but it was quickly swallowed by something darker. Rage. Pure, focused rage. Because they hadn't just punished me. They tried to weaponize the system against my daughter. "Thank you for calling," I said. "If anything else comes through, please notify me directly." "Of course." I hung up. I stared at the wall for a long moment, trying to regulate my breathing. Then I called Priya. She picked up on the second ring. "I assume this is not a social call." "They went after Nora." Her voice sharpened. "Explain." I told her everything. She didn't interrupt. Didn't gasp. Didn't express outrage the way friends would. She went cold. "Evan," she said, "I need you to listen very carefully. What your father did is legally significant." "What do I do?" "You don't respond emotionally. You don't confront him. You let me handle this. Tell me what you're planning." "I'm planning to build a documented case file," she said, "demonstrating harassment, malicious interference, and potential endangerment of your child's well-being." I blinked. "Endangerment?" "Yes. Because false allegations involving a minor can trigger unnecessary investigations, stress responses, and trauma." I felt sick. "He didn't think about any of that," I said bitterly. "He didn't care," she corrected. "Then We're escalating this, Evan. Legally and formally. Do I need to worry about Nora being questioned? No. The school has already dismissed the report. But we are not letting this slide. For the first time, I felt something deeper than anger. Resolve. This is the line, I said quietly. He crossed it. No, Priya said. He obliterated it. That night, after dinner, Nora sat on the couch coloring a picture of a fox wearing a crown. Dad, she said without looking up, can we make hot chocolate after I finish this? Yeah, I said softly. We can. I watched her for a long moment. Safe. Quiet. Happy. Then I pictured her grandfather calling her school with lies. And something inside me hardened into steel. They wanted war? Fine. They just forgot something important. I have something worth protecting. And I will not lose. Is this normal or toxic? Let me know in the comments. Priya moved fast, faster than I'd seen any lawyer move outside a courtroom drama. By 9 a.m. The next morning, she had drafted and filed a formal cease and desist against my father, a notice of legal representation to the school, a protective statement documenting the false report, a preliminary petition requesting boundaries due to harassment. All before I finished my second cup of coffee. At 9:17 she called. Your father is going to receive official notice today, she said. Expect backlash. Don't engage. I nodded even though she couldn't see me. He's not going to handle this well. No, she said. But he forfeited the right to your consideration the moment he targeted your daughter. I felt that line in my bones. My dad's first reaction came in the form of a furious voicemail. He didn't even say hello. What the hell is wrong with you, Evan? I just got some letter threatening legal action. Legal action? Against your own father? For caring about his granddaughter's safety? You're sick. You need help. This lawyer of yours is turning you against us. Then, as if reading from a script of classic manipulation, he added, Call me back. We can settle this between us. No lawyers. No drama. Just family. I didn't call him back. He waited 2 hours, then sent a text. Dad, you're making a mistake. Nora deserves stability. I stared at that one for a long time. Stability? From the man who excluded her from vacations? Who treated her like an afterthought? Who tried to use the school system to hurt me? I blocked his number. Beth was next. She spammed me with messages so rapidly my phone lagged. Beth, you are destroying this family. Beth, Dad is shaking, he's so upset. Beth, how dare you threaten legal action? Beth, all because you overreacted to a vacation. Beth, Nora probably doesn't even care. Beth, you're poisoning her against us. Beth, you need help. Then the kicker. Beth, Dad is thinking about talking to a lawyer too. You better fix this before it gets ugly. I read it twice, then handed my phone to Priya. She snorted. Classic bluff. They don't have a case or a leg to stand on. And legally? You're positioning yourself exactly where you need to be. What about Nora? I asked. Does any of this touch her? No, she said immediately. You've insulated her. And now we're documenting their behavior for future protection. This is leverage, Evan. I let out a slow breath. Leverage. A word I'd never had in my family. That evening, I picked Nora up from school. She ran to me, backpack bouncing, her fox drawing folded carefully in one hand. Dad! Guess what? My teacher hung up my picture in the hallway. She was grinning so wide it almost hurt to look at her. This child, this bright, gentle, hopeful kid. This was who they treated as optional. Not anymore. We drove home with her chattering about art class and the mystery reader that visited and how she wanted to try painting something big and messy. I let her talk. I let the warmth of her excitement push back the weight of everything else. Later, while she was doing homework, I stepped onto the porch to take a call from Diane. Oh, honey, she said. Your father is telling everyone you're unstable. I huffed. Predictable. He's leaving out the part where he called the school. I set the record straight. That startled me. You told people? Absolutely, she said. If he's going to gossip, I'm going to tell the truth. People should know what he did. I didn't expect to feel relieved. But I did. She lowered her voice. Your father is furious because he's losing control. You did the right thing. Don't back down now. I won't, I said. And I meant it. At bedtime, Nora curled up beside me with her book. Dad? She murmured. Yeah, baby? Are Grandpa and Aunt Beth mad at us? I hesitated. Then I chose honesty without cruelty. They're upset, I said. But their feelings aren't your responsibility. Or mine. Are we in trouble? No, I said, brushing her hair back. We're safe. She let out a tiny breath and tucked her head against my shoulder. Okay. She fell asleep like that. And for the first time since Christmas, I slept too. Because protecting her wasn't just something I was doing. It was something I was finally, fully committed to. No more hesitation. No more guilt. No more bending to people who treated her like nothing and treated me like a wallet. This wasn't just conflict. This was transformation. And I wasn't afraid of the fight anymore. The next escalation didn't come from my dad. It came from someone I didn't expect at all. My mother. Now, to be clear, she hadn't been part of this story so far because she'd spent the last decade treating family conflict like pollen, annoying, airborne, and best avoided by simply not acknowledging it existed. But apparently Dad had riled her up enough that she decided to step into the arena. It was Saturday morning. Nora was at the kitchen table drawing a fox wearing a superhero cape. I was cleaning up breakfast, enjoying a rare quiet moment. Then someone knocked. Not aggressively like Dad. Not impatiently like Beth. This knock was soft, hesitant, almost apologetic. I opened the door. My mom stood there with a casserole dish. A casserole. The universal peace offering of someone who has absolutely no intention of respecting a boundary. Hi, sweetheart, she said, smiling too brightly. Mom, I said carefully. What are you doing here? I came to talk, she said. And to see my granddaughter. She tried to step forward. I blocked the doorway. Her smile faltered. Evan, she said, lowering her voice. This has gone far enough. I waited. You've upset your father, she continued. You've embarrassed the entire family. And you've made a spectacle out of something that should have stayed private. Private. Meaning. Quietly absorb their treatment and say nothing. I didn't respond. She took a breath, switched tactics. I know your father can be strong-willed. But he loves you. And he loves that little girl. You misunderstood his intentions. Did I? I asked. She blinked. Of course. Your sister's kids are younger. He thought the trip would mean more to them. She's 9. I said. She understood perfectly. My mom's eyes flicked past me into the living room. Is she here? I brought her something. No, I said. You didn't bring her anything. You brought a casserole so you could justify showing up. Her cheeks reddened. You sound like that lawyer of yours. Good, I said. She exhaled sharply. Evan, your father is worried. He thinks you're letting resentment ruin the family. I stared at her. Did he tell you he called Nora's school? To report me as unstable? She froze. What? Did he tell you? I continued. That he tried to use child services to punish me for setting boundaries? She swallowed. He said he was concerned. He said. Mom, I said quietly. He lied to get leverage. Her facade cracked for half a second. Just a flicker. A tiny break in the armor. Then she recovered. Well, she said briskly, that's between you and him. I don't want to get involved. You are involved, I said. You showed up. She pressed her lips together. Then she tried one more angle. Sweetheart, she said gently, this feud is hurting everyone. Including you. Including Nora. Just apologize. Sign whatever papers your father wants. Pay your share of the trip. Make peace. I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. She flinched. You really think, I said slowly, that the solution to all of this is for me to apologize and pay? Yes, she said simply. That's what families do. No, I said. That's what our family expected me to do. And those days are over. Her eyes hardened. The gentleness vanished. And then she said the sentence that told me she never saw Nora as family at all. You're throwing away blood for a girl who isn't even yours. I didn't feel anger. I didn't even feel shock. What I felt was relief. Clarity. Truth spoken out loud. The mask dropping. Because now I didn't have to pretend she was better than Dad. I stepped back just enough to end the interaction. You need to leave, I said. Evan. Now. She didn't move at first. Then she did something familiar, something my family always did when confronted with a boundary. She cried. Real tears? Maybe. But weaponized tears? Absolutely. I raised you, she whispered. This is how you repay me? No, I said. You raised a son who thought love meant being useful. I'm unlearning that. Her tears stopped instantly. That told me everything. She turned stiffly, marched down the walkway, and threw the casserole into her back seat so hard I heard it thud. I watched her drive away. When I came back inside, Nora looked up from her drawing. Was that Grandma? She asked. Yes, I said. Is she mad? She's confused, I said, echoing what I told her before. Nora nodded slowly. Then she held up her drawing. Look, she said, beaming. My fox is brave today. I smiled. So are we. She grinned and went back to coloring. And I realized. My family thought losing them would break me. Instead, losing them was the first time I'd felt whole. Who do you think crossed the line? Tell me in the comments. My family's next move didn't come through a phone call. Or a knock. Or a tearful doorstep performance. It came through the mail. A thick, official-looking envelope wedged into my mailbox between a grocery ad and Nora's Highlights magazine. Return address: McAllister and Sons Legal Services. My stomach went cold, but not with fear. With exhaustion. I opened it at the kitchen counter while Nora sat nearby gluing sequins onto a construction paper comet. Inside was a letter, 3 pages, typed, self-important, and wildly unprofessional. Beth always did love a dramatic gesture, so I assumed it was her doing. But no. The signature at the bottom belonged to my father. The letter accused me of financial abandonment of elderly parents, inflicting emotional distress, wrongfully denying access to their biological family legacy, enabling a child to replace kinship bonds. I actually choked on a laugh at that last one. Replace kinship bonds? Nora said 7 words to them between October and December. And 5 of those were, "Thank you for the applesauce." But then I got to the final paragraph. The request. The demand. The delusion. My father insisted that I reinstate his authorized user access, contribute monthly family maintenance support, reimburse them for the failed vacation trip stress, and this was the wild part. Attend mandatory family mediation where he would state expectations going forward. Expectations? My father was now formally drafting a list of financial obligations for me like it was a job description. I set the letter down. Nora looked up. Is that from school? No, I said. Just grown-up stuff. She nodded and returned to her comet, humming tunelessly. I took a picture of the letter and texted it to Priya. She called in under 30 seconds. Are you reading this or hallucinating it? She asked. Both, maybe. She inhaled sharply. Evan, she said, voice low, your father just made a massive mistake. I figured. No, you don't understand. He put in writing that he believes he's entitled to your income. He referenced denying your child's place in the family. He attempted to create a financial support obligation without legal basis. And, her tone sharpened, he is formally documenting emotional manipulation. Is that good for us? Good? She almost laughed. This is a gift. I exhaled. So we respond? We respond, she said, her voice turning crisp. Firmly. And permanently. That night, after Nora went to bed, I sat alone in the living room and let myself feel everything at once. Not sadness. Not grief. Not the ache of missing something I never really had. What I felt was done. Done hoping they'd change. Done trying to be chosen. Done sacrificing my peace to prove a point they never cared to understand. The version of me who would have mailed a check to keep the peace? He was gone. And something steadier had replaced him. Something that didn't need their approval. Something Nora deserved to grow up with. The next morning, Priya sent me the draft of our reply. It wasn't emotional. Or angry. Or defensive. It was 3 paragraphs of absolute clarity. My father had no legal claim to my money. Any future contact must go through legal counsel. Any attempt to interfere with Nora's well-being would trigger immediate protective action. At the bottom was the line that changed everything. Our client will not participate in mediation or financial negotiations. This matter is closed. I signed it digitally. Priya filed it. And just like that, the balance of power shifted. That afternoon, Nora and I went to the park. She insisted on bringing her superhero fox drawing, which she held out in the wind like a flag. Dad? She asked as she ran ahead of me up the hill. Yeah? Are we still brave today? I watched her hair blow wild in the sunlight. Yes, I said. We're very brave. She grinned and sprinted toward the slide. For the first time in a long, long time, I felt light. Free. Like the story I'd been stuck in since childhood had finally started being rewritten. And this time, I was the author. Am I overreacting honestly? Write what you think in the comments. Priya's response letter hit harder than any confrontation I could have had in person. I knew that when my father received it, he would explode. I expected shouting, accusations, maybe even another attempt to show up at my house. But I didn't expect silence. 3 whole days of it. No calls. No texts. No voicemails. Nothing from Beth either. It was eerie. Like the moment after a storm when the world holds its breath. On the 4th day, I got an unexpected notification. Not a call. Not a message. A certified mail delivery notice. Another letter. I signed for it at the door while Nora decorated cookies at the kitchen table, humming to herself, face smudged with frosting. The envelope was thick, again. But the return address wasn't a law firm. It was my father's handwriting. Messy. Slanted. Angry. I opened it carefully. Inside was a letter, handwritten, shaky, uneven, the ink smudged in places where he'd pressed too hard. It wasn't a legal threat. It wasn't an apology either. It was something else. The letter began with, "You have humiliated me for the last time." Not a promising start. He went on, claiming I'd betrayed him. Insisting Nora wasn't real family. Calling Priya a parasite. Accusing me of brainwashing Beth's kids against him. They don't even have my number. And finally, declaring he would be cutting me out of his life permanently. He ended with, "When I am gone, don't expect anything. You made your choice." I read it twice before I felt anything at all. Then I laughed. Quietly. Deeply. Not because it was funny, because it was freeing. He thought disinheriting me was a threat. As if I hadn't been cut out emotionally decades ago. As if money could make me tolerate mistreatment. As if I cared about an inheritance when the cost was my daughter's dignity. I folded the letter once, slid it back into its envelope, and put it in the drawer with the others. Evidence, Priya would call it. Closure, I called it. When I walked back into the kitchen, Nora was holding up a crooked sugar cookie shaped like a star. Dad! Look! I made this one for you. She'd covered it in blue icing and 3 too large sprinkles. It looked like something a kid makes you because she loves you for real, not because she expects anything in return. I sat beside her. That's the best star I've ever seen, I told her. She beamed. We decorated cookies until the table was a battlefield of crumbs and food coloring. She got frosting on her nose. I pretended not to notice so she could feel triumphant presenting each new creation. We laughed. We talked about the fox drawing she wanted to turn into a comic book. We made hot chocolate and watched the marshmallows sink. It wasn't a dramatic moment. It was better. It was normal. Safe. Ours. Halfway through our cookie chaos, Nora asked, "Do we have to see Grandpa soon?" I shook my head. "No," I said softly. "We don't." She let out a breath that was too heavy for a child her age. "Okay," she said, and picked up another cookie. That was when I realized something. My dad didn't cut me out. I cut myself free. And Nora got a father who finally understood his job. Not to bankroll people who didn't care. Not to play peacekeeper for a family that never offered peace. Not to chase approval. But to protect the child who looked at him like he was the whole world. And for once, I felt like I was getting it right.